The Morning Huddle Construction Show is fortunate to have 5 sponsors for season 7, helping us to spread the word and create positive change in the construction industry. And we want to give a shout out to each of them and thank them now. First is Katz Abosch. This is a middle market accounting firm with a deep specialization in construction, tax, audit, accounting, fantastic group of people. Next is Lawrence Law. This is a boutique law firm that works with contractors and helps them with their day-to-day legal needs as well as all of their most significant legal challenges that they might run up against. Lawrence Law. Then we have Sandy Spring Bank, which is a regional bank in Maryland with a group of people who really understand what the needs of construction businesses are and who partner with you to achieve your financial aims. So Sandy Spring Bank. And then we have Marsh McLennan Agency, bonding and insurance professionals who really just have unparalleled insight into the construction industry. They're the best in the business. And then lastly, we have Genesis AEC. And Genesis is a full service architecture, engineering, and construction management firm with a deep specialization in the life sciences industry. We also happen to have some of their folks help us with guest hosting from time to time.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's morning huddle time. How you doing, Stace?
I'm doing good. I just got back from my spring break in Tennessee, so I'm, in the thick of things here, trying to catch up on emails today and work. But it was beautiful weather, a great trip in the Smoky Mountains.
See, I got to get down there. I appreciate the plug. I needed it.
Yeah, there's so much to do. It's like Ocean City, Maryland, Myrtle Beach, but in the mountains. So for a 7-year-old, that's like a dream come true. So I liked more of the mountains and, off-road riding and fun stuff like that. But there's a lot of commercial stuff to do too for the kids.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of ways to extract your money.
Yes.
As any vacation destination has figured out. Yeah, that's the deal.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm glad we're good. I had a little staycation last week during spring break. We it was mostly like a week where I was able to work on my stuff instead of having a bunch of meetings, which was wonderful. And then when the kids were like, "Hey, do you want to go outside and play hockey?" I was like, "Yes." I was able to say yes instead of "not right now, kid," which was awesome. It was a great way to do it. We just bought a new house at the end of last year, so my wife was like, "Are we going to go anywhere from spring break?" I was like, "No, we're going to stay right here for spring break."
Are you all like unpacked and everything, or still working on it?
Oh yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, we got that done pretty fast. We treated it like a job and got intense with it right after we moved in. Our storage room is still a mess, but that's we'll get there one piece at a time.
Yeah.
So I'm really thrilled to have our guests on today. We're going to talk about a successful succession plan execution. And there, as you know, Stacy, with WellBuilt, what I do, what our team does all the time, we're working with construction companies that, for the most part, are pretty well established, been around for several years, and some have been around as long as Sargent has, which is almost 100 years. But it is such a common thread discussion, which is what, ownership, what are we going to do? Leadership, what are we going to do? People, the baby boomer generation is massive and very entrepreneurial historically. And so there are a ton of construction businesses that are getting to and have over the past 10 years have been getting to and over the next 10 years will continue to get to this key decision about what are we going to do to transition ownership, leadership, and stewardship of our businesses to the next generation. And so today we have on Herb Sargent and Eric Ritchie from Sargent, which is about a 400 employee earthwork contractor headquartered in Maine, but spread across 7 states in the United States. And Herb is the CEO of the company, which he's going to tell us what that actually means today. And Eric is the president and COO and key piece of the succession plan. So Herb, Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on.
Yeah, no, we're thrilled to have you. So anything in the description of Sargent, is there anything else that you guys would like to add for context for our audience?
I think the main thing is that we're an employee-owned company, 100% as of 2013. So I don't think it makes succession more important to a company, but it makes succession more important to the employee owners, I think.
Yeah, well, they have
that's a big difference.
Yeah. So actually, this is a really good entry point, talking about being an employee-owned company, an ESOP. So I'll use that term, ESOP, Employee Stock Ownership Program. I'll use that interchangeably with employee-owned. You made the decision quite some time ago, over 10 years ago now, Herb, to become, well, probably over 20 years ago or something like that, to start the process of becoming an ESOP. And that's the first piece of succession. So the first piece of succession for ownership is, what am I going to do with ownership? What am I going to do with this company I own? You know, a lot of people in your position, Herb, are 100% owners.
Right.
Figured that for you in terms of becoming an ESOP, when you made that determination, why did you make that decision, and how did it go?
So we got a little bit of a unique history in that our business, that's close to 100 years old, as you mentioned, was actually sold. Our family sold it in 1988 to a company from Paris, France. And I left that business and started my own. And then about 17 years later, bought the business back, bought the family business back. And it was actually during the process of that, of evaluating whether this was a good idea or not for me to do, because I own 100% of the stock, was, okay, this would be great if we can do it, but then what happens in the end? Where do we go? How does it happen? How does ownership happen again? Because frankly, Stillwater, Maine is not a hotbed of people looking for acquisition targets.
Right.
You know, so to find another acquirer would be like catching lightning in a bottle twice. And so that's probably not likely to happen. But I had heard about ESOPs a few times and had gotten somewhat educated in them. I had a viability study done. And so we bought the company in 2005. In 2008, I had a viability study done that I frankly wasn't all that happy with. So I kind of put it on the back burner for a while through the Great Recession. I had other things to be more concerned about. But as the recession came to an end, I turned 50 years old, and I said, man, we got to do something sometime. And I felt like we were at the bottom of the market, and that would be a good time to make that change to employee ownership and give the benefit of the run up to the employees as we, you know, went out of the recession into what we hoped would be, you know, the next active market in the construction world.
Amazing decision making there. It kind of counter to what I would imagine most owners are thinking, right? Sort of, let me build this thing up and get it big, and then I'll sell it, to the owner or to the employee.
Yeah. So basically, I had an ESOP attorney that said, wait 5 years, you can get twice as much money. And I said, write down what you think I can get today, if you would. And he did. And I left with Tim Folster, our COO at the time, and George Thomas, our retired CFO. And I said, you know, the number he wrote down, I don't need twice that much. I don't, you know, there's a limit to how much you can spend, and whatever you don't spend is going to go to your kids, and it's going to come off the backs of the people that earn it. So let's give it to those people. And my kids are going to be fine anyway. So let's give it to those people. And the timing, I really felt it was important for me to separate the ownership and the management succession. That was important for me because it's a big nut to cover both at the same time. And there's so many moving pieces, especially when you come to the management succession piece. And we didn't have a bright line on where we were going on the management succession, but I just felt like if I could separate those two, it would simplify the process going forward.
I love it. Yeah, it's a wonderful mindset. There could always be more, but at some point, when is more completely unnecessary?
Right.
And that's a really I admire that, and I'm sure your business has carried forward a lot of those mindsets in its culture.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think that's where I got it from, was from the people in the business. Right. I think I got that mindset from the people in the business, the selflessness of the people in the business and the sacrifices they make every day, and wanting to honor that.
Amazing. That's so cool. So I want to pull Eric into the conversation.
Sure.
So Eric, when did you join Sargent? Why did you join Sargent?
Sure. Well, I'm going to chase this back, and I won't go all the way to the beginning of man or anything here, but so had a history of Sargent myself anyway. I'm born and raised in Maine. Had seen H.E. Sargent around the state as a kid. They actually were part of constructing a fairly major highway to the eastern part of the state here. And when I say that, there's 2 highways to the eastern part of the state of Maine. So building a second was pretty critical, as you can imagine. But H.E. Sargent did a lot of that work. Grew up in a blue-collar family, always just liked building things, right? And this industry really appealed to me. I got in after college. I went to school for civil engineering. I worked for a large company for about 16, 17 years. And they had grown immensely, had been bought and sold to a foreign company at that point in time. And I left shortly after. Just wasn't for me. There were some things there that were just not in line with how I like to do things. And I was going through a little tough period of time in life as well. Got out. And frankly, if something said corporation on it, I wanted nothing to do with it. Went to work for a small contractor that didn't pan out for a lot of reasons. And came to work for Sargent. I had actually turned down a job interview here at one point in time, just to where I was in life. And
Sure.
The right things happened for the right reasons. And I knew a lot of the folks here and came on board. So started off on our hot mix asphalt and aggregate side and concrete plants that we had. And from there, it just kind of grew and took off. The business had to make a lot of changes in the business to get ourselves healthy with some things. And I think from there, Herb could kind of see a management style that he liked. And they tapped me on the shoulder. And as Tim was looking to retire, and frankly, I'll be straight up and telling you, you had mentioned this in the pre-warm-up here a little bit, Chad, but initially when Tim approached me, my first thoughts were, no, I don't want anything to do with it. I had risen to a level before, and I was pretty happy in life doing what I was doing. I'd gone through some personal stuff and was in a good place. And Tim knew how to grab me though and said, you're 37 years old. What are you're just going to take your foot off the pedal for the rest of your life. And that was
Tim never told me all this.
That was all he had to say. He had me hook, line, and sinker. And
he challenged you, right?
Well,
he challenged.
And frankly, after being here for a period of time and seeing what this company had, not just in terms of the ESOP, that my understanding of that came along in time, and the benefit to that came along in time. Being employee owned meant something to me. It meant we were in control of our destiny. And as time rolled on, I started to gain a better appreciation around the ESOP. It's a wonderful vehicle, the only vehicle I've seen that distributes ownership wealth to the people of the company in a massive way, might I add. It's done and done well. So to see the way, and Herb's being, he hasn't alluded to this, but also just the way he set the ESOP up. Wasn't a typical fashion. He held the paper himself, and that allowed us to pay him off over time and keep a healthy balance sheet and keep the company in a good position. So for me coming on board, having that ownership piece, as you mentioned, already settled and in good shape, it's been nothing but a fun ride ever since. And it's led to, as Herb mentioned, it's led to just succession planning on steroids, quite frankly.
Well, as it should, and it should, even if it's not, an employee-owned company. But these, I think Herb said it well right at the beginning. It doesn't make it more important. Period. It does just make it more important to more people. Absolutely. And because it's more important to more people, it tends to be front and center. And I think one of the things I've observed in the ESOPs that I've had the pleasure of working with over the years is that they recognize on scale the need to develop the future, and they confront it regularly and openly, and it's a very positive thing. So I Eric, you had built this career and did your time in big corporate America, and we're looking for the opposite of that in a lot of ways. So I understand what brought you to Sargent. Herb, what was it and when was it that you said, I think this is our guy?
So Tim knew Eric better than I did, and Tim said, I think we need to bring this guy in. We've got to beef up our bench. We need to bring this guy in. So we did. And as Eric said, when he came in, he took control of our hot mix asphalt operation and our ready mix operations. Since that was his background, both of those he had dealt with in the past. So we put him in charge of those. And we had another couple people in charge of those that really just weren't accountability experts. And I mean, maybe I'm being a little generous here, but I think Eric is really more about taking account for, and I can remember one conversation that one of the plant managers called Eric and said, hey, a truck driver didn't show up. What do you want me to do? And Eric said, well, you do have manager at the end of your title. That's your job to do. You figure that out. And that was a new way of thinking, frankly, for us, because we had always let all the problems just percolate to the top. And then we dealt with all these things at the top that we should have been dealing with. We should have been looking out the front of the cockpit, not down to the ground. And so Eric's value in that became clear in that way. And then when we went through strategic planning in 2018, I think it was the same year. I mean, just 2 or 3 months after you joined us, right, Eric?
It was. Yeah, it was.
And we, watching him in those meetings and the way he is with people and the way he is with the business, and thinking differently about our business. We were bidding at the time $1.2 billion worth of work a year, and we weren't making much, frankly. And in fact, we made more in interest this year than we did in operations in 2018. In fact, 2 or 3 times more in interest. So we needed to make a change, and I felt like Eric was in tune with that. And it was about the same time at the end of 2018 when Tim had said, okay, I want to retire in 2020. So that gave us 2019 to get Tim offloaded and get Eric onboarded into that COO role. And I think we called you VP Ops at first, but within a few months added the COO role. And in that time, Eric doesn't know this, I did this more intentionally than he's aware, but I just backed off. I kind of felt like I was being really lazy, and he's nodding his head. But I wanted to see how Eric handled it. And we had one project that was a major project loss for us. And I wanted to see how Eric and the team handled that. And, it seemed like, and also the way he managed the troops and the projects and the project acquisition. And I just felt like we were very well aligned in values and the way we approached the market. And I think that's what our folks deserve. I also know that Eric's really in tune with trying to develop people, and he benefited. I think, Eric, you could speak to a little bit better, but I think at your previous company, they did a better job developing people, or at least they did a better job developing you.
Yeah. Well,
I think they had more, and we didn't have much of a process.
as they grew as a company, they had put some things in place, and I had development opportunities, both structured development as well as baptism by fire, as we all know is so common in this business. That for all the young folks out there, there's times when you're having that baptism by fire, it feels like the worst thing to have happen to you. But 5 years down the road, well, you've just adjusted your breaking point. You can handle anything, right? But Herb was spot on. I appreciated the chance to be a part of our strategic planning, being so new to the company. And frankly, the way the folks in this company embraced me from the start has made my job, one, both enjoyable and two, possible, right? To come in from a guy from the outside with a lot of folks that have been here 15, 20, 30 years, that can go in a different direction if folks aren't accepting of that. And the people here have been great. And that's the foundation of the company, as Herb said. And pouring into them is what we're all about. Herb and I, very much in line in terms of the values on the wall, all those type of things. We see the strength is in our people. We move dirt, but the strength is in our people at the end of the day.
That's awesome. All right, cool. So very quickly, you recognized some skills and mindsets and this shared alignment with Eric, and you put him, Herb, in a spot to say, all right, let's see how this goes. And he didn't know that he was being tested to the degree that you were testing him. But one of the things that you said, and obviously you succeeded, and looking at that, it really struck for you this note that, like, this is our person. This is the person that really should be leading this thing. One of the things that you mentioned in telling that story that rings so true for me with my clients. It seems like at least 3 or 4 times a year, I'll get a phone call from a CEO that we're in the midst of enacting a succession plan, leadership succession plan with, and he'll be like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm feeling really lazy, which was, the words that you used. What was the difference for you between what you had been doing and what you started to do when you, as you said, let go? And what made you feel like you weren't doing enough, or like you were being lazy?
Well, Eric and I had a few conversations around this before he took the VP Ops COO role. And I'll put it this way. I didn't feel like with Eric's predecessor that I could make much of an impact. In fact, I used to say that I felt like I sharpened pencils all day, and I was told I need to stop saying that. But I did. I actually sat down with Eric and said, this is how I feel, like I'm sharpening pencils all day. I've got this page of dreams that I want to see unfold, and I don't seem to be seeing them unfold. Can you take a look at this and see if you can see your way through to making these dreams unfold? If we're, it's kind of an alignment check in a way, but it's also like, if it's kind of like your job becomes vision, right? The CEO job is vision, and that vision has to have somewhere to go to be implemented. And you're going to have 50 ideas, and 10 of them might be good, or and how many can the organization swallow at once? Do we want to be a python swallowing a rhinoceros, or how many can we handle at once? And I can be the kind of person that's like, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this. And one of the great things Eric and Tasha, our CFO, are good at is like, we're doing a lot right now. Let's wait. Let's give us some time. But just being aligned on what we thought those dreams could be, and then back last May 10th, I think it was his first day as president. I walked in with our staff and around the room, and I had this sheet of paper from 2019 with what I call my dream list. And I said, this dream list is either done or well on its way. And for that reason, this guy is the president of this company now. And if you want a decision, go see him.
Yeah.
So it wasn't difficult for me, but asking, the difference for me is, can you have some vision and can you have some impact? Because the CEO role is not tactical. And that's a struggle for me, because I've always been more tactical and really more of an improviser, and that can put a lot of stress on an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had to learn not how to improvise all the time and throw 100 darts at the wall. And even in my earliest days out in the field, I would improvise like crazy. Like, I think if we try this, and I probably drove my crews crazy, but they went along with it usually. But it's having, you can be frustrated being a CEO with some visionary things that don't even get a second look. That can make you feel like you want to just leave. That's not the way I felt with Eric, and I just felt like he's taking these things. He's got similar thoughts, similar ideas, maybe different tactics to them, but similar ideas of where we want to go. And this is all really in service of a company that is taking care of people that we're making huge financial promises to, out 40 years, out 60 years, people that aren't even born yet, that we're making these promises to. And so it gets kind of heavy in that way, but that's a long answer for your question, but I think it's where we are now is a much better place than me feeling like I'm sharpening pencils.
Chad, I just wanted to add, one thing Herb didn't mention here, there's a lot of intentionality behind it. And you have to have a plan, and you have to be intentional, and you have to have honesty between each other. Herb and I are very aligned. We have a lot of the same goals for this company. And, for him being the namesake of the company and nearing retirement, I've seen several waves of retirements now. I know I'm going to be there someday. I also know it's very easy right now to talk about how easy my retirement will be. But when I'm there, it's not an easy thing. So to watch Herb intentionally separate himself, be so intentional about it. He and I are aligned. We talk, we have a lot of the same goals, as I mentioned, but there are times that we haven't been aligned. And we sit and we talk about that too. Every once in a while, we'll get spun up on something, and we have to sit down and just have a conversation of, okay, we seem to be spun up here. Let's work our way through this. And it's almost always that we're trying to achieve the same thing. Maybe it's just we haven't talked about it enough. We're coming at it from different angles.
Yeah, productive conflict is essential in a healthy relationship. It does no good to Herb if you just say yes to everything, right? Because Herb knows that half his ideas or more are crap.
Yeah, he doesn't want that. And for both of us, we started in the field, and we're both tactical guys at heart.
Yeah.
And that's where our heart is. So, as you rise up through the ranks and you come into these positions, you're doing, quote unquote, doing less. Yep. You're seeing less tangible things be done. Yep. And it's all around that vision and thoughts and ideas and the constant pressure on the organization. Diamonds are formed under pressure and time, right? That's what it takes, is pressure and time with a lot of this. And so I just think having that overall alignment, and really the biggest alignment we have, is that we care about the people here. That's number one. That commitment that Herb mentioned, it's a big financial commitment to them. It means a lot to their families. And we want to make sure we provide the absolute best place to work that we can for them. We want to support them every way that we can. And that's what it's about. And I felt that support along too from the organization. And last, I just want to mention, Chad, sometimes people get support confused. Herb talked about accountability. I think sometimes accountability is just people hear fired when they hear accountability.
Right.
But accountability, like support, isn't just a good job. It isn't a pat on the back. Sometimes support is also a kick in the ass to say you need to head in a different direction. And that's what we're trying to provide for people here. And I think that employee ownership has been a great vehicle for it. But the 99-year history of this company and the longevity of our people here, that's the foundation of it, is right there. It's all in the people.
We have 2 people here that still working, that started in this company when I was in second grade.
I was just going to ask you that. Like,
It's just crazy.
that's crazy.
It is crazy.
And it's
one thing about the succession thing that I think is, and this has kind of been my dream about succession, is that we accelerate through the zone rather than fumble the baton.
Yep.
And looking at the succession in a way similar to a relay race, that we're both running at full speed when we hand the baton off, and there's not a fumble, and that really, I mean, it's a pretty public thing, even though I don't think most of the people think of it on a day-to-day basis. But I think that our employee owners should or would be happy that if they could see the handoff, the transition, be smooth and be when we're both at full speed versus having to slow down to pick up one or the other. I think that's really important. And I also think for succession periods, when we, I think I started talking to you, Eric, in January of 24 about the transition to president. And the reason it was important for me to do it, I think there were a lot of people that were thinking, well, Herb's going to retire the year we turn 100. That'll be the right time for Herb. And for me, for a couple of reasons, it's not the right time for me to retire. And one of them is because I want it to be about the company turning 100 and not about me. That's one of them. But the other one is that I felt like 2025 was going to be a good year for us, and 2024, I'm sorry. And Eric had been running the operations 100%. Like he had been going after the work. He and his team had been building the work. He had been building the business from about $110 million in 2019 to 200 and something into 2024. And I wanted, when 2024 was over, I wanted to be able to say that was Eric's year, right? That wasn't Herb built this. I wanted everyone to know Eric was president, and Eric gets credit. Not that he cares about the credit, but I wanted it to be well known that he had a lot of wins under his belt, and not just well, Herb had a good year in 24 and retired, and Eric got the next year, whatever it turns out to be. I think we're going to have a good year this year too, but Eric turned that into, Eric and his team, I know he wouldn't take the credit, Eric and his team turned 24 into the best year this company's ever had.
Yeah, that's 550 employees that made that happen. And
wow, 550 now.
550, and we're been growing all the time, smartly growing. We want to grow for the right reasons, which is to provide more of what we have to more people at the end of the day. So, Herb's being a little modest here as well. Having the second founder of the company, we might as well say, his grandfather being the first, exiting the business is a big deal. And there's a lot of businesses that falter in that stage, as you know. And to see us continue to not only grow through that period of time, but to have the company's folks be so accepting of it. And let's face it, you folks know in the last 5 years, the challenges have been immense. We've had a global pandemic. We've had, if you couldn't learn to embrace change in the last 5 years, you're never going to learn to embrace it.
Yeah. From the pandemic to interest rates and what that's done in the environment. Now we're having some tariff fun.
Inflation. It's something every year, right? And almost always happens in March. I just want to point that out too. I'm thinking about skipping March every year.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, but we, our folks have embraced change, and that's been a big part of it. And they've seen what the health can bring. They've seen the growth it can bring them. And that's been the other great thing about watching our growth is it's the growth in people. It's the opportunities that are being provided.
So I want to jump on that here for a minute, because as you grow and as you create more opportunities, what I've observed, and I wonder if this has been the case for you, is that the need or the demand for competent leadership grows in lockstep
most definitely
with the organizational growth. And so what have you seen along those lines in terms of opportunities for career advancement inside the business? And how are you helping your people to meet opportunity for those positions?
Sure. We've seen a tremendous amount of that, whether it's a new region that opens up, whether it's been a restructuring of our PM staff and going to a kind of a different setup there from a support staff side of things. The training programs we offer, the in the field mentorship. The training is a great start and it's a great baseline, but it's the in the field mentorship that has made the difference. And that mentorship isn't from one position to the same position. That's up and down, down and up. An operator's mentoring a foreman's mentoring a surveyor. It could be any of those type of things. And we've really talked to our people about the growth mindset. They've seen us grow. They've watched those new operations open up, different types of work that we've taken on, the opportunities that it's presented, and they know that we are heading in a direction that we want to produce leaders. So when we are ready to continue growing, we can put our leadership in the places we want to be. And part of that will be folks also embracing that change mindset that sometimes opportunity is going to come, but maybe not where you want it to come.
Right.
It's not always in your backyard. You might have to go somewhere else for it, just like Herb's done, just like I've done, and a lot of folks here have done. So to me, as we continue to grow, as those people gain experience and we retain those people, our training starts to change as well. It becomes more and more involved, more detailed. And I get pretty jacked up talking about this because to me, I can just see this whole thing spinning and continuing on. And so the growth in people has been great. I think our young folks here have seen the mentorship they can get and the care that they can get, while the veterans are here to just back it up and confirm it, to say, no, this is real. And this company really does want you to succeed at the end of the day.
Do you notice any particular culture? I mean, maybe you had this culture prior to being employee owned, but I wonder if inside an ESOP, you find that there's a less territorialism, less sort of like protectionism of my gig, and more just sort of like, hey, we want the right people to if that means you're better than me and you should have the job above me, that's great. I know that's a hard thing to achieve in any environment.
We see it, and not that it doesn't still lead to bruised egos and all those type of things from time to time. We try to always have the right conversations around that, right plan in place. But no, folks here overall, we really haven't seen that. Folks they're engaged with what we're doing, and they recognize the direction that we're headed.
I mean, Eric personifies that example of somebody that came in from outside the company. And there were some people that have been in leadership roles. When FMI did their surveys, there were a number of people mentioned as potential leaders in the future. And, Eric was moved ahead of many of those and those guys. And it's a credit to Eric and the way he manages and the way he is with people. A great credit to him that those folks fell right in line behind him 100%, and they support him in great ways. Back to your question about that development piece, we started in 2015. We took one of our so I'll say this: my biggest failure in my career as a manager is the guy that ran this business is from 2008 to 2013. We did not invest in people. We basically, I call it, stepped away from the draft for 4 or 5 years. And if you're an NFL team and you step away from the draft for 1 year, you might be okay still. 2 years, 3 years, you're a 500 team. 5 years, and we just didn't. And in 2015, when the economy was coming back, and we just all of a sudden we were out over our skis with work and not enough help, we took one of our best regional managers and put him in charge of workforce advancement. And we started what we call Sargent Construction Academy, which focuses on immediate high school grads, bringing them into the business. And since 2012 to now, our under 25-year-old cohort has gone from 10% to 25%.
Wow.
Our under 40 cohort has gone from about 35% to 55%.
Yep.
That's
So
awesome.
I say we've euthanized our company. That's probably not exactly right. But anyways, I feel like we've really got a good, and we've got to keep working at it always, but I think we've got a good breeding ground for a lot of strong future leaders that are coming through. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we have that, those numbers that we have. And now the older folks are really taking an interest in helping those younger guys. And a few years ago, we had one of our older operators was known for chastising the young foreman. And I went and talked to him, and I went and talked to, I don't know, 10 or 11 of these guys on a one-on-one basis. And I said, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want your legacy to be, I worked here 35 years and retired? Or do you want your legacy to be, I worked 35 years here, poured into everybody that I worked with, and my legacy lasts now 50 years and beyond? And about 2 years later, I was at a job and I was talking to one of these young foremen that had been chastised by this very person the year or two before. And I said, how do you like it here? He says, oh, great. Steve and I are going fishing later today. And Steve was that guy. So now I believe the culture is better suited to that being rivers of knowledge versus reservoirs of knowledge.
And I think along with that, Herb, when we talk about the ownership and accountability piece, people have started to realize, I have a saying that I don't water dead plants. And I think people are starting to realize that it isn't about retaining 100% of the people that you bring on board. It's about retaining 100% of the right people that you bring on board.
Yep.
So if they're not in line with our culture, if they're not in line with how we do things and how we work, then our people police them out. We keep our culture strong that way.
Mm-hmm.
There are about 150 lessons that that I could take from this conversation, and it pains me to say that we've reached our limit of time because I can really, really continue through this discussion. This has been phenomenal. What a fantastic story and series of examples for contractors who are facing down. What do we do with our future? I think there are a ton of things to be learned here. And I'm sure you could also provide a long list of what not to do through bumps and bruises that you've taken on. And maybe we'll have you on for just like a session on all the problems. But this has been a phenomenal conversation about, what to do and what it looks like when it's done right. Guys, any parting wisdom, any parting advice from each of your seats? Eric, I think about the up and coming leader who may be hesitant to take on more responsibility, or who may aspire to this, type of position, do's and don'ts. And then I'll flip over to you, Herb, for the CEO, the founder, kind of thing. So Eric, I'll toss the question to you.
I guess I would just say, for me personally in my career, nothing's replaced hard work. And we preach that to our folks here too. If you have a good attitude and you work hard, you can accomplish anything. Surround yourself with the right folks. I was blessed to come into an organization with great people that, by the grace of God, they decided I was the guy to follow at the end of the day. And but if you continue to support folks, you continue to pour yourself into other people, the results will always be there, and you'll never regret doing that. And from a succession standpoint, I don't think there's a perfect plan. I think it takes two people that are in lockstep. And I want to mention Herb and I are so in lockstep. We have the same shirt on, even though we're in different. That's how well we coordinated today. But it takes just good, honest communication and both of you wanting the same things at the end of the day. And usually that's about the success of the people, nothing to do with yourself. And for me, I'm just very proud to have had this opportunity. And I do want to say to you folks, one, thank you for this opportunity to be on, but we've been doing some work with you folks in our inaugural Leadership Academy, and Matt Verderamo from your organization has been helping us, and it's been a great experience. You folks are very in lockstep with what we do, and it's been very appreciated to have you on board helping us develop our leaders.
It could not be more of a pleasure. Thanks so much. Yeah, we're just we love the work that we're doing with you, and we're honored to be doing it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Herb, advice, maybe I'm a 60-year-old, owner, and I have, this, picture out in front of me. Maybe I'm 50, maybe I'm 70. I don't, but I have this picture out in front of me. What advice would you give at this point if I have not enacted a succession strategy to this point?
Start today. That's as simple as it can be. Start today. I don't care how old you are. Start thinking. If you're 35, start thinking about succession. If you're 40, 45, start thinking about succession. Because when you get there, I have a very dear friend who's in the same business we're in, smaller company. He's about 2 or 3 years older than me, and he called me up a couple of years ago. He said, "Herb, I can't believe it. I promised myself I would not die on a bulldozer. But I'm going to die on a bulldozer." He's 65 years old now. He's got nobody coming behind him. I said, "You could go ESOP." He says, "I don't have anybody run it. It wouldn't be fair to the employees to do that." So the options begin to scale down on you, as you know, the older you get. And if you can approach it when you're 50, if you can have a decent plan when you're 50 and work it through the next 10 years, and you're gonna hit a few potholes, you're gonna run into the guardrail here and there. So you've got time to recover from mistakes you might make. Just go ahead and get started on it. Get a plan. Think about what it looks like for you to no longer be in the business. And I'm grateful for Eric and Tasha and the rest of the team. As I said, we're celebrating our 100th anniversary next year, but I'm thinking about our 200th. I don't know if I'll be around for it, but I'm thinking about I say that because I want this employee ownership thing to be picked up by all the people that follow us. And there's a tremendous responsibility to that. But I would say get started today.
Love it.
Be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, again, both of you, for joining us this morning. I'm sure this is going to be a top episode, in terms of engagement. I know I'll be sending it out to a handful of people that I can think of that could stand to hear this message. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Stacy, that was fun.
That was awesome. Great company, great people, great legacy. Seems like they got it all figured out and they had no bumps in the road.
Yeah. Again, we'll hear that story. I'm sure you learn a lot more from pain than you do from success. I guarantee.
Sure.
We heard some of that alluded to. Certainly, there were some painful times, and every business, goes through those things. But one of my biggest takeaways, as I reflect on it, is that no matter how urgent your business challenges are today, the things that you're focusing on right now in terms of surviving the Great Recession or pushing through whatever tough rough patch, you can't take your eye off the future, and your people are your future. So you've got to work on your people even when you have 100 other things going on, and you're worried about mere survival. You don't get to survive if you don't have your future squared away. You can live through today, but what about tomorrow?
You can take small steps. Just take that one step towards building out your legacy and your future.
Yeah,
one step at a time.
Wonderful stuff. What do we have coming up next week, Stacey?
So we have a returning guest. Stepan is coming back on, the AI expert. I think he hasn't been on it for over a year now.
Which is basically like in AI years, that's 150.
Right. So much has changed. So with him, he left his company. He started his own business. He now moved to the United States. And
he's doing like AI consulting straight up, right, for construction and
so
design.
He'll share some really cool case stories about, it's no longer about building up that AI library that he was building up, but actually taking some of the software and implementing them for his clients and things. So it should be interesting.
Wonderful. Stacy, remind people where they should follow our show. Where would what should people do if they're like, this has been a great episode, I want more? What should they do?
Well, first, be a part of our email campaign. So you can always email me at Stacey, STACEYH at steeltoecom.com, or visit our website at www.themorninghuddleconstructionshow.com. We have all of our episodes up there. Yeah, and then we're wrapping out the season end of May, and we'll be starting to look for new guests for our upcoming season, which starts in September.
Beautiful. I cannot wait. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention, we have a 2-day business development boot camp specifically for construction. Obviously, that's all we do. So if you want to learn more about that, jump on the Wellbuilt website, wellbuiltconsulting.com. That is coming up in mid-May. So we do have some seats available, and it is going to be an awesome time. So come check out the business development.
Is that local?
Yeah, it'll be right by Baltimore Washington Airport. It'll be right by BWI Airport. We have currently everybody that's registered is flying in from out of town. So
interesting.
it happens all the time. Yeah, that's why we do it right by the airport. So we definitely, like I say, we have seats available. I think we can take 10 more. So look forward to having more registrants on that. Yeah. Stacey, I guess somebody will see you next week. I don't know if it got your text this morning. I don't know if you'll be here, but we'll handle it. We'll make sure that we've got next week and the conversation with Stepan covered. That'll be a great discussion.
All right.
See you soon.
All right, talk to you.
See you.